Now, sports gamblers, Scott Spreitzer, one of the leaders and most trusted names in the country. Nobody watches and studies games more than he does. From DocSports.com, here's Scott Spreitzer, exclusively on with Rockin' Minuch with Jimmy B on ESPN 620.
All right, we are going to, well, we're not, but our guest, Scott Spreitzer, is going to handicap Georgia at Tennessee, Texas A&M at South Bend, at Texas State in Tempe, and Cardinals hosting the Panthers. And then we'll talk about the big boxing fight tomorrow with Canelo and Crawford. And he joins us now here on the Right to the Guest line. How you doing today, big fella? You doing all right?
I'm doing okay, man. Good. Just waiting for some of these games to get going, and I'm glad we're talking about the fight. I mean, I don't get excited for too much boxing anymore, but this is one of those nights when I can't wait.
All right, we'll get to that last. We'll make sure we have time for that. So, Scott, let's. Georgia's only laying 3.5 at Tennessee. Do the odds makers see this one as a true toss-up because of maybe the home field advantage, or do you trust Georgia can cover and be that SEC top dog?
Yeah, I trust Georgia. I mean, this line was as high as 7, not that long ago. It went all the, several days ago. It dropped all the way down, as you mentioned, 3.5. It's back up to 4. But again, I've been a little bit surprised that the buyback hasn't been bigger than it has on Georgia. And, one of the things I keep hearing is that they didn't really blow out their first couple of opponents, but that's Kirby Smart. He doesn't bring all the tools to the workplace against outmanned opponents, but he will here. I expect Gunnar Stockton and his wide receivers to attack this Tennessee secondary. It's banged up a bit, the secondary. They're 84th in passing yards per game allowed against weak opposition. And I was looking at those two teams they played. They threw 71 passes against Tennessee, and the Vols have just 1 pick in those 71 passes. You look at the second half of the last 4 meetings, guys, and Georgia has outscored Tennessee 48-14 in the second half of those last 4 meetings, 28-0 in the second half of the last 2 seasons combined. It's been 3 years since the Vols have scored a point after halftime against Georgia. And I just don't think Tennessee's made up enough ground. So I do like Georgia here.
We were just talking earlier about how Georgia just reloads with their front 7. And I don't know anybody, Scott, that out-recruits the defensive line, offensive lines for a Georgia team that just seem to have that each and every year. How much do you thought it's going to have an effect? And you mentioned Tennessee struggles in the second half. But, I mean, just Tennessee getting off the schneid with their offense with big front 7 once again by Georgia.
Yeah, I think it's going to be so tough. You're right on, man. Looking at the trenches, and Tennessee's going to have to get out early. And I'm talking like, 10-0, maybe 14-6, something like that, in order to be in it, I believe, in the second half, because I think Georgia in the trenches is just going to wear this team down. It might not be anything pretty for Georgia at halftime, but I think, again, in the second half, they're just going to wear Tennessee down. I think there's a class difference there. And, Georgia's one of those schools out there like Ohio State, Michigan, Texas, that has the money to pay kids to come and play there. That's the big problem with Alabama. Welcome to Nebraska's neighborhood. You don't have nil money to keep up with the Ohio States and Georgia of the college football world.
All right, second game, Texas A&M at Notre Dame, 6.5-point favorite is Notre Dame. Hoping Colin Klein, the OC for Texas A&M, fine K-State graduate, can't keep up with the Joneses. Is this like the first time A&M has traveled to South Bend? At least it seems like in my lifetime. This might be the first. Is this the first?
Yeah, I don't remember ever seeing A&M in South Bend, so it's a pretty cool matchup for the home folks of Notre Dame. But, the biggest issue to me when it comes to handicapping this game is the quarterback play. You've got Marcel Reed. He was about a 60% passer before this season. He's at 66% this season, but the level of competition hasn't really been much to talk about. And then as far as the Irish, it has been a couple of weeks since C.J. Carr made his debut. He was okay. He was mediocre, I thought, at times against Miami. But we do have an advantage, I think, with Marcus Freeman, the head coach of Notre Dame, 3-0 against the SEC. And check this out, guys. I'm not the first one to talk about this week, but the Aggies have 13 straight losses on the road against ranked teams. They just don't play to that next level when they're on the road too well of the last 10 years. And I trust Freeman. I did go against the Irish and won with Miami. I like to back over C.J. Carr, and nothing against Carr, but because new quarterback and he's playing on the road against a good football team, and Beck has won a national title. They couldn't run the ball well, Notre Dame, in that game. But he's had 2 weeks now, Freeman and his staff, to prepare and get ready. And I think they'll get the right ground game in place, and I expect them to be able to move the ball on A&M, making life a little bit easier on Carr in the passing game. So I like Notre Dame here. It's a slight lean at 6.5. Thought the number was right about where it should be.
Scott, do you ever track, first couple games leading into a big game like this? I mean, Notre Dame, when I watch, looked very vanilla these first couple of games. Maybe leading into this game, do you? I don't know if you track it or notice that as a handicapper.
Definitely, and the game against Miami, I don't really take a lot away from Notre Dame only because they got the new quarterback, some new players, and they're going in against a very good football team with a lot of talent and a national title quarterback. But I do track this. The only teams that I don't care about as far as if they look sloppy in their first two games would be like we just said about Georgia. I mean, who cares that they didn't cover the spread? Georgia, that's what they do. They don't trash or thrash, outman teams. But the teams that are next level down and further down on the list, I want to see what they're doing the first couple of games of the season and take notes because, you do see some teams that are mid-level that all of a sudden they can't run the football against weaker opposition, and that does concern me, and I use that in my handicap once we get into week 3 and 4.
All right, Texas State here to play Arizona State. I went in and got it was at 14.5 when I originally jumped on it. It's now I see 18.5 could be different. Is this Is this the right spot for the Sun Devils, or is this number too risky for ASU backers?
I jumped in at 14, and it went up to, like you said, as high as 18.5. Right now, it's kind of settled in at 17.5. I worry a little bit at that number that Texas State can score some points in this game and even late against Arizona State. I played against ASU last week and was able to cash that ticket on Miss State. Yep. It got real close. After being 17-0, Arizona State, as you guys probably saw, tie game. They had the ball at the 1 or 2 yard line late in the game, first down and goal. And if they score there and get the extra point, I'm probably going to lose with Miss State plus 6.5. And they ended up settling for a field goal, and then the Bulldogs got the win. But I went back and sometimes you got to put your handicapping ego aside and admit to what you saw the previous weekend. And I looked at the Sun Devils. They had 3 broken plays last week against Miss State on defense on passing plays of 58, 47, and 58 yards again. It's 163 yards on 3 plays. But ASU held Miss State to 172 yards on the other 60 plays, just 2.87 yards per play. So Miss State was kind of fortunate. I got kind of fortunate there. I know they have some bumps and bruises on the offense, but still strong. Brown and Udo both gaining over 100 yards on the ground last week. I think Leavitt has a better game here. Texas State allowed some long, lengthy drives last week. Little concerned about Texas State being able to put up some points, but I think ASU ends up winning by about 20.
All right, Scott, the NFL game here. The Panthers are coming in from Carolina to take on the Cardinals. Cardinals, last time I looked, are minus 6.5. But since 2015, the Cardinals are 1-5 versus this Carolina Panthers team. Does that even go into the equation as bad as Carolina looked last week against Jacksonville?
Win number 2 comes this week. I really believe that. They eked out that cover last week, did Arizona in New Orleans. A little bit concerning that it was as close as it was, but hey, it's a road win in the NFL. They've got a chance to get the ground game going and run all day on this defense. I mean, the Panthers, they got crushed. The Jags ran for 200 yards last Sunday against them, and Carolina did nothing offensively. Bryce Young is either still not ready to be an NFL starter, or he's in the wrong place, or a little bit of both. Here's what I like in this game, guys. I played James Conner over 64.5 yards rushing in this game. If you watched the Panthers last week, Travis Etienne ran for 143 yards on 16 carries against Carolina. Last year, Conner ran for 117 yards on 15 carries in their meeting, a 36-30 game. And the Cards ran for 206 yards on 7 yards per pop. So I like Conner over 64.5 rushing yards. That was my play on this game.
And just curious, after one game watching Kyler Murray and Marvin Harrison Jr., they connected twice. Hopefully that continues on. Do you watch a lot of these young guys, if they're growing into the game, i.e. a rookie quarterback now in his second or third year, or receiver or running back? You talked about Etienne, et cetera, et cetera. How much do you watch reference to their growth when you handicap, Scott?
Yeah, definitely. I like to see it, first of all, if you've got a couple of the receivers who are on target as far as their, like, symbiosis is a good word to use, for this. I mean, I had Deebo Samuel over last night, his receptions, and he went over. We cashed the ticket. And just to use that as an example, obviously he's been in the league for a little while, but you could see in week 1, Jaden Daniels looking for Debo. And there was a stat, I don't know, it might have been PFF that put it out there, where he had looked at him like 55% of his first looks throughout the entire game in week 1. So I do look for those kind of things. And when it comes to a guy like Marvin Harrison Jr., which I think was just an incredible draft pick, I'll be watching that over the next couple of weeks. How many times is Kyler Murray looking at him with the first look through his reads? How many times is he looking at him when he gets in a little bit of trouble? And just kind of add that up over the course of the first few weeks and maybe be able to use that, especially for props, once we get deeper into the season.
All right, let's get into the Alvarez-Crawford fight. The super middleweight championship. This is you, man. How do you handicap this, and where's the edge?
Well, Bud Crawford moves up from 154 to 168. I don't mind guys moving up. I don't like guys moving down in weight class, because when they move down in weight class, a lot of times, they get a little bit dehydrated during the course of the fight. He's never been close to losing a fight. Canelo hasn't been all that impressive the last few. His last quality fight was against Golovkin, and that was 3 years ago. Crawford's taller, longer wingspan, but again, he's never been in trouble. One of the smartest ring technicians that I've seen in the last couple of decades. Bud will be busier than Canelo in this fight. Canelo doesn't have the same kind of combinations, the number of combinations that he used when he was a bit younger. I do believe the fight's going to go the distance. Here's the concern I have, and I like Bud Crawford plus $140 in this one. The concern I have is that Canelo sure seems to get the benefit of the doubt from the judges. And I saw it firsthand when I was sitting 8 rows from the ring when Canelo, a much younger Canelo, fought Floyd Mayweather. Mayweather fought the perfect fight. I mean, I really mean it. He fought the perfect fight, dominated Canelo. And we had, me and another guy, we had Mayweather winning all but 2 rounds. And the judges didn't see it that way. And one judge, C.J. Ross, was watching something else, not the fight, actually had it as a draw. And I've seen that over Canelo's career where he's getting the benefit from the judges. But I think Bud's going to outpoint him way too much in this fight. I'm kind of surprised that he's plus $1.40. I thought it'd be closer to even money. So you're getting him at a nice underdog price here.
When you're looking at this, and for those that have not bet a lot of boxing, which I'm one of them, when you're seeing a Crawford to win in round 7 or 8 or 9 or 10, and it's plus 5,000, and how do you bet that? What would you recommend when you're thinking it's going to go to distance? So that would tell me to kind of look at some of these these round fights or
the round prop
rounds. Yeah.
I mean, it's like these two guys, they don't normally, when they're going up against top-notch opposition, you're not normally going to see one of these guys knock out the other or get knocked out. I mean, Crawford's chin is ridiculously, strong, and I think you're going to see it go the distance. So what I start looking for are, obviously round props, and the main round prop out there is over/unders 10.5, but the price to get 10.5 over is ridiculous, which is why I held off on the round prop. I do think it goes the distance, but I don't want to have to lay $300 to win 100, on that over. And you never know. Somebody gets a lucky punch in there. These are 2 of my favorite fighters. Either one could do enough damage early on with a couple of shots that could end the fight early, but I don't think that's going to happen. But yeah, round props, I play those. I don't bet a lot of boxing anymore, guys, because we don't get legit competitive matchups, like we used to. And this is, like I said, I don't even watch MMA a whole lot because I feel like I'm cheating on my first love, which is boxing. So if you can't hear it in my voice, I am super excited to plunk my rear end down to the couch. I'm not going down to Allegiant and fighting 60,000 fans for this fight. I'm going to plunk my butt down on the couch and enjoy this fight.
Scott, real quick, I know we didn't have this on the sheet, but can you pull up Arizona, Kansas State for tonight down in Tucson, and where's the money going right now?
Yeah, let me see what that line is right now. I got a line service with about $25 from all over the world here. It'll take me 2 seconds if the computer's not bogging down.
Yeah.
Right now it is, let me find it here. Okay, Arizona is currently a 1 point to 1.5 point underdog. That total's sitting at 54.5. I actually passed all 3 games tonight, guys. I was tempted to back Houston over Colorado, and then I thought, it's just not making my card. So I passed all 3. I mean, K-State's been so disappointing. My gosh. And Avery Johnson's not playing up to the level I thought he would before the season.
Yeah.
Maybe they'll come through tonight and get the victory.
Yeah, who you telling, Scott? Talk about disappointment. You should see the 25 alumni football guys on our text chain. We're like, what is going on, man?
Yeah, and they got Chris Kleiman. I mean, he's one of my. But how about this? Did you see the stat last week? Army 27 minutes of the 30 had the ball in the second half. Something like 27 out of 30 minutes. That's just ridiculous.
Yeah, why you want to rub it in like that?
Well, Scott, I told Minucci kind of touts this 25-person group text he's on. I'm like, why don't you guys just freaking donate some more money? You guys will be a lot better. Well, you're not donating enough.
I guess not. I guess that $50 a year is not going into contention.
You guys sound like me. I keep trying to tell Warren Buffett to donate more to the football program. He's got his priorities all screwed up. He's donating to the academic side of things. But, you K-State fans can start heading up to Lincoln and wear red. We're okay with that.
Yeah. You got a tough one tomorrow.
Yeah.
Thank you, as always, buddy. Appreciate your time.
Take care, guys.
That's Scott Spreitzer, DocSports.com. Check him out there or on X at Scott Wins. So, all right, we got a little update on Lamar being cleared, the NFL ratings, Eckler's Achilles, Mahomes passing Marino. That's all next as we continue from Right Toyota. It's Rock Minucci with Jimmy B right here on ESPN 620.